Welcome to Film Detour, a podcast where two longtime film buddies take you down and around the back alleys and side streets of cinema.
With the occasional left-hand turn.
I'm John Napick.
And I'm Bob Mueller. So let's go. John, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's hit it. We're here today with the
Halloween special.
The Halloween special, yes. Our second annual Halloween special. It was a big success last year, and we are looking forward to it this year.
Can't believe a year has gone by.
No, it's pretty fast, huh, John? It's crazy. The idea for this particular movie came from my son. So he suggested, hey, Dad, why don't you do The Night Stalker? He's a big bat enthusiast, and he has his own organization called Buddies for Bats. If you check him out on Facebook, if I can be so bold, John.
Yes, definitely. It's a great site.
He is a little environmentalist since he was 11 years old. He's now in college, and he just is really in love with these misunderstood creatures of the night.
It's a great movie. I love this movie. I know we've talked about it a long time.
I love it.
And it's our first TV movie.
That's true. This could have been released as a feature film, no problem.
Yeah.
It has a kind of an interesting genesis. Barry Diller, who was the wunderkind of ABC television, he was a big deal. He was really young at the time. He came to the producer, who was Dan Curtis.
Yeah.
Dan Curtis is known for Dark Shadows.
Dark Shadows.
The original television show.
Yes.
And long before Barnabas Collins comes into it, there are several seasons. And it was really a ghost story, like a Haunted Mansion type ghost story.
Right.
Original.
But a soap opera in the daytime.
Exactly. Yeah. Actually, Harvey Keitel was on an episode. So Barry Diller comes to Dan Curtis and he says, "Look, we got this script, and we want you to direct." And Dan Curtis goes, "Nah, I've done a lot of different stuff. I'm not interested in directing." He goes, "Well, then you produce it. It doesn't make a difference. You do it." So Dan Curtis goes, "Well, all right, who wrote it?" Richard Matheson. Boom. That was it. He was on board. That's all he had to hear.
Richard Matheson, one of the great horror writers and sci-fi and other novels. He's
Absolutely.
Not limited to a genre.
Twilight Zone comes to mind instantly because that he is to a large degree the Twilight Zone.
Well, he practically invented the zombie genre with I Am Legend.
Exactly.
The original novel.
Great novel, great story. Made it 3 different movies. We had the original one was The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price.
Uh-huh.
And we got the second version.
The Omega Man.
With
Charlton Heston.
And a newer one with Will Smith.
Will Smith, yeah.
Called I Am Legend.
Took place in New York City, but I think the original took place in Los Angeles.
I think so, yeah. If I remember correctly. So the interesting thing is this was a movie of the week, ABC movie of the week. I remember this distinctly when I was a kid because it was an event. It was a big deal. This was Barry Diller's idea and has this opening credit sequence. It had this what's called a slit scan, and you see the titles coming toward you like ABC Movie of the Week. It's split in the middle, and it's coming right at you. It's a really amazing piece of technology. This technology was actually developed by Douglas Trumbull for 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, the going beyond scene, or when he heads to
Jupiter and beyond.
Jupiter and beyond.
Right.
Excellent. That's really psychedelic.
Yes, it's great. I always remembered it, and I love the theme song too. And here's another bit of trivia: do you know who did the Movie of the Week soundtrack?
I do not.
Well, I'll tell you, Burt Bacharach.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How did it go?
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So. The Night Stalker.
Directed by John Llewellyn Moxey.
And John, I don't know if you realize this because we didn't do this on purpose. I blame my son for picking this movie. But oddly enough, in a strange set of coincidences, last year's movie was Horror Hotel.
Yes.
Directed by none other than
John Llewellyn Moxey.
Yeah. So this was not on purpose.
But he's an interesting guy because obviously he did City of the Dead or Horror Hotel in England.
Yeah.
He did some feature films, but he went on to do a lot of TV movies. He became a TV movie director, basically.
He also did other movies of the week, Aaron Spelling Productions and whatnot. And a lot of them had, some sort of creepy element to it or supernatural element to it, or some girl got raped and she was being stalked again by the guy. So it was always these kind of horror intrigue type things. But he did everything from Mannix to the Mod Squad to Kung Fu.
My favorite, NYPD.
NYPD, The Name of the Game, another one of my favorite
Who was in that?
detective shows.
Name of the Game is...
Tony Franciosa.
Tony Franciosa, yes.
So he did The Saint and also did some of the Avengers. Not the Marvel Avengers, but
right.
the
original
Diana Rigg
Avengers. He did a couple of those, yep, definitely. And Charlie's Angels.
There you go.
Of
I mean,
episodes.
talk about a wide-ranging career.
Yeah.
He pretty much did it all. Normally, we don't make a big stink out of the producer.
Right. Unless they stand out in some way.
And this guy does.
Yeah, definitely.
Dan Curtis had an unbelievably successful career.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like anything he touched turned to gold. As I said before, he started out doing the television show Dark Shadows and later went on to do 2 Dark Shadow movies because it was so popular, Night of Dark Shadows and House of Dark Shadows.
Yeah.
He also did the Jack Palance version of Dracula.
Which is a great version.
It's very good. And Palance is worth the price of admission.
Also written by Richard Matheson.
Yes. And he did something called The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, also with Jack Palance in 1968. So he has a long background.
I mean, let's not forget Trilogy of Terror.
Trilogy of
with
Terror.
Karen Black,
Exactly.
of course. And
Also written by Richard Matheson.
yeah. He actually, I read a little thing with him. And
Yeah.
he talks about reading Richard Matheson. And he wasn't a fan of his originally, but when they met, they really hit it off somehow. And that's why there's so many couplings with them. They went on to do a lot of things together.
I think what happened was that Dan Curtis really lowballed him on a script.
Okay.
and put a really...
It would seem so, because all his movies, although they're very good, they're very kind of have this independent, low-budget feel.
He reminds me of a lot of Corman.
Yeah.
Because, pretty much, at least on the television show for Dark Shadows, pretty much if the light stand didn't fall over in the middle of the shot, they kept going. You see stage hands in the background and everything else, noise. He's very Roger Corman.
Yes. And then we talked about, we mentioned him, Richard Matheson, the screenwriter.
Amazing. I mean, just an amazing track record. He seemed to, once again, he could do no wrong.
And I have to just say this.
Yeah.
Richard Matheson, born in Brooklyn, wrote for the Brooklyn Eagle, which was Bay Ridge newspaper. Amazing. He started out, his first story was in the Brooklyn Eagle.
Yeah.
In Brooklyn. Look at that.
He did The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Yep.
He wrote episodes for Wanted Dead or Alive. Combat, John.
Combat, yep.
Have Gun Will Travel. And then he did stuff for Corman. House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum. As we said before, I Am Legend. It made 3 different times.
He did one of my favorite ghost movies, The Legend of Hell House.
Yeah, terrific. Roddy McDowall.
Yep. And the sequel to this movie, The Night Strangler.
Yes, with Richard Anderson.
Yeah, which is an interesting movie. It takes this movie a little further. It's a little more comical.
Yeah. He also did a movie called De Sade, about the Marquis de Sade, starring Keir Dullea.
And when Spielberg did Amazing Stories, he had Richard Matheson write a couple. That's interesting. He went from Twilight Zone to Amazing Stories. It's a nice little arc there.
I don't know when he slept, because he seemed to write all the time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And lastly, I want to mention the music. Robert Cobert was terrific.
Yeah.
He started back in television with Dan Curtis. Dan Curtis was looking for music for the show, and Robert Cobert came to him and said, look, I got a great theme for you. He goes, well, I have nothing to play it on. I have no tape deck, I have nothing.
Yeah.
He goes, I'll whistle it for you.
It's a very 70s kind of soundtrack. It reminds me a little bit of Taking of the Pelham. It's got that kind of brass, like bump, bump, bump. It's a really interesting sound.
I would
soundtrack.
say it has a little Mod Squad in it for me.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
It's a very 70s soundtrack, but the scary stuff, the creepy stuff, is really, really good.
Yeah. And he went on to do a bunch of stuff with Dan Curtis.
Dan Curtis, he did The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So anything Dan Curtis, Robert Cobert did the music. All right, continue on.
Darren McGavin, starring as Carl Kolchak.
Oh man, he's the show.
It's like the movie was made for him.
He's the show. Dan Curtis actually said he thought of nobody else but Darren McGavin.
Which is amazing, because of all the B-movie actors out there and character actors, you know.
He said from word one in the script, he said, Darren McGavin, which I think is amazing.
He's been around a long time. He's in a lot of stuff. Sure. He never starred. And to think that this guy would be this character, and it's perfect. Yeah. It works.
He's great.
And he was in Man with the Golden Arm, a Sinatra film.
Right.
Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Yes.
A movie called Climax.
I don't know that.
It's actually Climax ! From 1956. I know nothing about it, but the title just stood out to me.
I can't see why.
And then the first solo movie of a friend of ours, Hey Lady.
Jerry?
The Delicate Delinquent.
You're right, he was in that.
Yeah.
Holy cow, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Darren McGavin had a long, long career. And he was Mike Hammer, for instance.
In a series.
In a 1950s television series. He was in another one of our favorite movies called Tribes.
Oh, yeah.
With Jan Michael Vincent.
He was the drill sergeant.
That's right. And
wow.
He did not like that hippie.
Totally forgot that.
He did not like that hippie.
Incredible.
At all.
Yeah. Another TV movie.
Right. I don't know if it was a movie of the week, but it was another TV movie. And, believe it or not, he played the King of Siam in The King and I. It's not a movie.
Oh.
It was a Broadway play, actually at Lincoln Center.
I got you. Okay.
And he played the King of Siam.
Okay.
Song and dance man.
Hey.
We did not know.
Did not know.
But Darren McGavin is it. Look it up. Google it if you need
kudos to Dan.
And there he
Darren
is.
McGavin.
There he is. Could do anything.
And then he went on to do the whole Night Stalker series. This movie was so popular.
Right. Yeah. This movie, then The Night Strangler, and then turned into Kolchak, The Night Stalker. Yeah. Right.
And let's not forget, he played Ralphie's father in The Christmas Story.
Yeah.
All right. So should we just jump into the movie?
Yeah. So we fade up into this close-up of a Sony tape recorder, and a hand presses play, and we are instantly in.
Right.
It's like a Stephen King novel.
Yeah.
You know, the first page, first couple of lines, boom, you're in. And
well,
right
it's a
away,
great piece of writing.
Great.
The first thing I notice is we've been doing movies this whole time.
Yeah.
It's in 4:3. It's a square TV screen.
That's right.
And it's interesting because I noticed it in the first 10 seconds, but once the movie's going, you totally forgot about it.
It fills out the whole screen regardless. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point, John. I didn't even think of that myself because I was so used to seeing that on television.
Yeah. So he's in this shabby motel room.
Right.
Or it's really shabby.
Yeah.
Like everything looks dusty and old.
Rooming house or something. I don't know.
And you're thinking, like, why is this guy in this situation? We don't know. And as you said, he hits this tape recorder.
Right.
Which is a great device because it draws you right in. It starts telling the story.
He starts telling the story on the tape recorder, and he's got notes. He's obviously writing something.
Right.
He's a reporter, so he's obviously writing something. He grabs a beer out of the fridge, sits down, and he listens to the story as the story unfolds for us, the audience.
Exactly, yeah.
And he says, after you are finished with this bizarre account, judge for yourself its believability. And then try and tell yourself, wherever you may be, it couldn't happen here. Now, I just got chills up my spine saying that because I remember him saying it so vividly.
Yeah.
And this sets you up. And this is what's beautiful about Matheson. This sets you up right away. You're so in what's going to happen next.
Well, what a great device because you're actually challenging the audience.
Right.
To go, okay, come along here and see if you believe this story.
I dare you.
Yeah, right.
So right when he says that, judge for yourself, it couldn't happen here. Cue scary music.
Yes.
And this is where Robert Cobert really excels. And we see this blonde-haired, brown-eyed girl. Her name is Cheryl Hughes. Kolchak is describing her as the swing shift change girl at the Gold Dust Saloon. And she was standing there waiting for a girlfriend.
It's the old Fremont district, which is now a tourist situation because Las Vegas, when people think of Las Vegas, is the Strip. It's like, no, the high-rises and the amusements.
I see
that wasn't there.
No.
This is what Las Vegas used to be, the Rat Pack Las Vegas.
Exactly.
And it's great. Yeah, it's a great atmospheric setup.
So here is Cheryl Hughes waiting for her friend, and it's 2:30 in the morning. And she's waiting for her girlfriend to come and pick her up.
Right.
But her girlfriend is nowhere to be found.
Yes.
And, you know, I love the creepy jerk, this goofy guy with blonde hair who walks up to her like, hey, baby, you want to go out?
He puts his hands on her.
He touches her.
He's going to pick her up.
What a total jerk.
No, I think in the movie, he thinks she's a prostitute, is what I think, and she brushes him off.
I guess, but any girl walking down the street with a miniskirt does not have to be a prostitute.
No, I know.
You big doofus.
That's what I took from it.
Kolchak is still narrating, and he says, Cheryl Hughes, tired and hungry, and just mad enough to walk the 8 blocks to her small framed house. Cheryl Hughes, en route to her doom. And once again, the chills go up my spine because you're just waiting for something to happen. And she starts walking down this dark alley.
Of course, it's an alley.
But, you have to say that Fremont Street is really, really bright. So you can see somewhat in there, but it's pretty dark.
Yeah.
So she walks through the alley, and she's booking. She's boom, 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 boom. And she comes up to the
like a corner.
The left-hand corner of the frame, and all of a sudden, this hand comes out, and it scares the shit out of you because you just don't even
it
remotely.
Literally just grabs her throat and kind of lifts her up and pulls her
out of the frame.
Yeah.
You're not expecting it at all.
So she's in the alley, and it's this figure. We never see this guy. It's just his shadow, really, behind him, and he throws her around.
Yeah, like a rag doll.
And I just mentioned this only because there's a really cool cut in the movie where he throws her into this pile of garbage.
Right.
And he's going towards you. You only see him from behind, and his back kind of covers the frame.
Blacks at the frame.
And it cuts to the garbage man the next morning, reaching for the same can.
That might have been a commercial break, John.
It was a cut. Because there are commercial breaks. We'll talk about them. And so it just cuts to this guy, and he's reaching for the can, and she's stuffed into the garbage can.
Right. Then we cut to some kind of a soft, milky white material covering the frame.
Yeah.
And it's disorienting because you're going, what the heck is that? And then we notice that it's a sheet, and it's covering something, and a hand pulls back the sheet, and we're looking up at this really neat shot of 3 surgeons with a big light behind them looking down at us, one in the left-hand corner, right-hand corner,
right
and
at camera, yeah.
And it's a really neat shot. I've always loved this shot because you go, my God, what a perspective.
Wait a minute, whose point of view is this?
It's the point of view of the dead girl,
Is this
Cheryl
Sunset
Hughes.
Boulevard? What's going on here?
No William Holden to be seen. It's a nice young girl.
It's very interesting to do that, right? Because you're watching it going, it's a really cool shot. These guys are doing the autopsy. And you can see as they reach down with their scalpels, they're kind of going around the lens. But it's just a bizarre position to be in.
You know what they're doing. They're cutting it.
But it's like it's your autopsy as a viewer.
Yes. Hopefully, none of the audience ever has to experience that.
Well, if you are experiencing it, you won't remember it, believe me.
That's true. So you got the 3 surgeons looking down, and one of the surgeons, the guy on the left-hand side, he takes a scalpel and starts cutting into the chest. And the surgeon at the top of the frame says, "That's incredible." And you're thinking, what? Then the surgeon who's been doing all the cutting, he's on the left-hand side, he pulls down his mask, and he's got a grimace on his face and says, "What, John?"
Don't tell anybody about this.
And who might that actor be, John?
I did not pick up. Who?
It's Larry Linville from MASH.
Of course.
This is more of a dramatic role as opposed to a comedy role. He's not Frank Burns, but there he is, Larry Linville, the doctor.
Frank Burns. So then we cut to the newspaper office.
In comes Carl Kolchak. I love his name.
Yeah.
It's very Clark Kent. It has that alliteration to it. It's a great name for a reporter to have. And
he's dressed like your typical Hollywood beat reporter.
Yeah, the wardrobe is great. He's got that beat up straw hat, white linen jacket, and a pair of slacks, and he's got these white patent leather shoes.
Well, he's like dressed as if he's in the 40s or 50s, and here it is the 70s. It's like
it has that feel. He does seem like a detective, doesn't he? It does seems very Philip Marlowe, doesn't it?
Yeah. And of course, Simon Oakland as Vincenzo. That's his name.
I love Simon Oakland,
the newspaper editor.
Simon Oakland, let's just talk a little bit about Simon Oakland.
Well, like everybody in this movie, he did have a long, illustrious career.
He uttered one of my favorite lines in movie history in Psycho.
Dr. Fred Richmond.
There's a guy, he's a reporter in the background, and Simon Oakland, as the doctor, is trying to explain something about Norman Bates, and the guy shouts out, "He's a transvestite."
Yeah.
And Simon Oakland says, "Not exactly." I just love the way he phrased that line. All right. Anyway, so in comes Vincenzo. And he's not the nicest guy. He's not the happiest.
Well, he's
editor.
the cranky newspaper editor. What's great about this movie is it's a vampire movie, but it's also a newspaper movie.
Right.
It's like a classic Hollywood, like, get the story movie. And it's got all the classic characters, the cranky editor, the dogged reporter.
Yeah.
You know, it's
the downtrodden dogged reporter trying to work his way back up.
Right.
That nobody listens
what's
to.
His name? Kirk Douglas in
Ace in the Hole.
Ace in the Hole.
Right.
Same thing. Down on his luck reporter, looking for the big story.
Yeah, exactly. So he gets a story slapped in his hand. Literally, Vincenzo slaps it in his hand, and it's a 2-day-old murder.
Right. He doesn't want it.
He doesn't want it. Because what am I going to do with this? He's looking for big stories.
Little does he know.
Exactly. So he's doing his job, and he pokes around a little bit, trying to get a lead. And he checks in at the hospital with a doctor friend of his.
Dr. O'Brien.
Right.
Of course, Kolchak seems to know everybody all over town. So he knows the doctor at the hospital.
Then he makes his way over to the Gold Saloon where Cheryl used to work.
I want to go to the Gold Saloon.
I do too, especially if Carol Lynley's working there. So he goes over
his
to
girlfriend,
Gail
Foster,
played by Carol Lynley, who is
the lovely Carol Lynley.
The lovely Carol Lynley, absolutely positively. She is the quintessential 70s blonde.
Yes.
And she is in a slinky silver satin dress with no bra on.
Yeah.
God bless her.
Well, it's funny. It's like typical casino wear, right?
Yeah.
Like they make them dress in these kind. It's
You
like
bet.
a long dress. It's like
long dress to the floor. Absolutely positively.
Like a dinner dress in a casino.
Right. Hey, when the mob used to run the place, it was a classy joint.
Hey, where's Rothstein there? Where's
Arnold Rothstein? So, just a little side thing for Carol Lynley. The first thing I remember her doing, she was in the Poseidon Adventure. And she sings the theme song.
Oh.
She's a lounge singer. She's singing in the lounge.
Is it called The Poseidon Adventure? The song?
It's called The Morning After by Maureen McGovern.
Well, it's funny. She knows the murder victim, and she tells him, it's a funny line, I don't think she liked men. She even took up karate. She was a brown belt.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of took that as, was she a lesbian or was she
she
didn't like men?
She wasn't crazy about men. She did. He said she did say she dated somewhat, but she wasn't crazy about men.
And no wonder she walks down the street and they're pouring.
That's why I said I wish she would have given that guy a karate chop to the neck.
These days she would have.
Yeah, and nobody would think twice about it. Basically, Kolchak in the voiceover says, a murder of one girl in a town the size of Las Vegas doesn't really make a ripple. But soon, the ripples started coming. And right then and there's going to be something bad. And I love this scene because this guy, Moxie, he really understood how to work with a budget. And the economy in his shots are beautiful because the setup, the way he does this is, there's a guy standing there, and it's a low-angle shot, and he's a construction guy, probably a road crew or something. And he's standing there, his fists are clenched, and he's really tense, and he's really looks like, he's going to throw up. He's so nervous. And as the camera pans down through his legs, we see the police cars in the distance come zipping up, and we hear the sirens going. And then he turns around and goes all the way back to meet with Sheriff Butcher.
Sheriff Butcher, yeah. Claude Akins.
Claude Akins is great.
He's in one of my favorite war movies, The Devil's Brigade, and it's a total out there role for him. Private Rocky Rockman. He plays this big, brawny kind of bully in the movie, and it's such a great comic role.
And we can't forget all the Amco transmission commercials he did.
Oh, right.
AA, MCO.
I forgot the horn. So let's just go back a step here.
Yes.
So bright daylight at this construction site.
Right.
And what's interesting about this is, if you know Vegas, this is the strip they're building. They don't know this at the time, but it's like going from the old Vegas to the new Vegas.
Right.
I always find that fascinating about this movie. It literally
is
like
good point,
the old
John.
Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's dying off, basically. Yeah. And so we're at this construction site, and Sheriff Butcher's there in his cowboy hat.
Right. Very much the sheriff.
And it's a great little scene.
Basically, Sheriff Butcher just about gets out of the car and says, take this guy's statement. Up comes with his dust flying Kolchak.
Yeah, he's always there, that Kolchak.
And Claude Akins or Sheriff Butcher turns around and says, "What took you so long?" Kolchak says, "I got a flat tire." So right now and right here, you understand that they have an adversarial relationship here. They're not thrilled with each other. They're not happy with each other. And certainly Butcher does not like Kolchak at all.
And so what's interesting about the scene is there's this body, and it's way out there in the middle of this drainage ditch.
30 feet away, maybe? 30 feet away?
It's sand all around her. And what do they notice?
No footprints.
No footprints.
And I just got the chills because it's really a creepy element. Now, this is in the bright sunlight.
Yeah.
But there are elements going on here that are unexplained that just get under your skin.
Yeah. And they're not really spelling it out loud either. No. They're really spoon feeding us.
Absolutely.
And it's great because you're like picking up on all these little things. And what's going on here?
Absolutely. Great.
And they're like, no, not a footstep in sight. Is that physically possible?
And Claude Akins goes, "If it happened, it's possible."
One of the great police lines in movies, of course, by Richard Matheson.
Because Richard Matheson could write anything. Supernatural, westerns.
Newspaper stories.
Newspaper stories. Didn't matter. Absolutely. Could write anything.
So they go down to the body
right,
to check this out. And, of course, their footsteps are the first footsteps there. And they turn her over. This is the first time we kind of see this. Her neck is kind of butchered.
It's very much butchered. And she's white as a ghost.
Yes.
And the cop talking to Sheriff Butcher says, "Sheriff, she lost a lot of blood.
Yeah.
A lot of blood. And she didn't lose it here." So once again, you go, what the
And,
hell?
of course, Kolchak is like, "Carol Hughes lost a lot of blood, too."
Yeah.
He's always the fly in the ointment to these guys. And the sheriff turns to him, and he's like, "You read that in the newspaper?"
No, I didn't read that in the newspaper. So once again, it's a sparring match between these two.
And then another cop yells out from back up on the embankment, "They found her purse." And they're looking at the distance here, and Kolchak's like, "What did he do? Throw her? Like, how did she get out here?"
But that's the creepy thing, and that's why it's really creepy even though it's during the day. What kind of guy can do that?
Yeah.
So that's where we really are intrigued. And I think Kolchak has really gotten a bite on this now that, this is worth digging into.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's hooked.
So Kolchak writes it up, what he's seen, and he hands it over to Vincenzo. And Vincenzo basically rips him a new one.
Like, what are you doing here? But what's funny about it
I want facts, Kolchak, not fairy tales.
I love it because Simon Oakland always looks like his head is just going to burst. He's like red and he's like always screaming at Kolchak.
Absolutely.
It's just so funny.
He does look like his head's going to explode. And he slams the door. And I love Kolchak's reaction to this. He stands there in the door jamb just outside the door and starts just banging his head. So kind of like Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
In frustration.
And again, I have to say, you mentioned her, this movie just moves. Next scene, we're in this apartment, another body.
This movie doesn't stop moving.
Yeah, another body, like 3 bodies. Right. 1, 2, 3. Boom. No, not waiting for anything here.
This is a showgirl. She's a young woman, and she's murdered in her own apartment.
Yeah. What I love about it is the olive green appliances.
Yeah.
Refrigerator. It's like
couldn't be more 70s.
It's like, where'd you get that from? The Price is Right? It's like so 70s. Who did the theme song for Price is Right?
Yes. Robert Cobert. You're right. You're right. There's a career for you.
Yeah.
See how we tie all this in?
But here, right after the scene, it does fade to black.
Yes.
And why is that?
Commercial.
Yeah. It was a commercial break.
That's right.
And talk about fast-paced movies. The reason is it's not a 90-minute movie. That's what the movie of the week was.
75 minutes, John.
75, because they had to put the commercials in.
Do we love 75-minute movies, John?
Excellent.
You bet.
Yeah.
I love how Kolchak's friend, the FBI guy, Bernie Jenks, played by Ralph Meeker, who also, once again, not coincidentally, has a long career. Is there anybody in this movie who didn't have a long career?
He played Mike Hammer in
Kiss Me Deadly.
Yeah, which is a great mid-50s noir film.
First time I ever saw an answering machine in a movie.
Is that a Mickey Spillane movie?
Absolutely, Mickey Spillane. That's his character.
Yeah. Next scene, we're at this pool scene, at this hotel in Vegas. It's at the time when I was watching as a kid, it seemed so glamorous.
Absolutely.
And it still looks cool.
Yeah.
Like so it's like
the waitresses are walking around in bikinis.
In bikinis.
Can you beat it?
And it just looks beautiful. The weather's nice,
Absolutely.
Whatever.
Perfect.
And he meets up with his friend Bernie,
Bernie Jenks,
who's in the bureau, which I'm assuming means the FBI. And Bernie's kind of his one pal in law enforcement. Exactly. It seems like everyone else is against him.
Exactly. Bernie likes to drink his beer, as Kolchak says. A cheap Ganef who guzzles my beer.
I love how he says Ganef, his little Yiddish.
Yeah, little Yiddish. The 70s way of doing things. By today's standards, you would never get away with some of this stuff. You have this girl, she's walking along, she's got a tray of drinks, and she's in a bikini.
Yeah.
And Ralph Meeker wants to finish up quickly. Bernie Jenks wants to finish up quickly because he wants to go chat this girl up. So he gets up and he says, "I'll talk to you later, Carl." And he shouts out, "Hey," to the waitress, "I like your license plates." I don't think the Me Too generation would appreciate that particular comment. Kolchak gets a phone call. He gets a tip from his buddy, the doctor.
Dr. O'Brien.
Dr. O'Brien, I'm sorry. And so he hears that the Parkway Hospital was knocked off for their entire stock of blood.
Right. And I'll just say this, because there's a couple of these. It's such a great wrinkle on the vampire story.
What's great about it is Matheson makes the implausible not just plausible, but possible and real.
Well, that's why the movie works, right? There's this tension between reality, because it's this real story, right?
This is one of the first modern-day vampire things I've ever seen, because you're really taking this into the modern age, and you're not camping it up, and you're not winking and nodding. You're going, hey, guess what?
How would it really happen?
Yeah.
Right? And what would you do?
Because it would reach a certain point. You can't keep pulling girls off the street.
What a great idea.
It's brilliant.
Rip off the blood bank.
It's brilliant. And there's a scene, kind of a press conference scene, you call it, John? What would you call that?
I'd call it the courthouse scenes, because they always seem to end up at this courthouse, the DA's office.
All right, so they're at the DA's office, and they got some of the press there. And we have Frank Burns, or rather Larry Linville.
Larry Linville.
He plays Dr.
He's the coroner.
He's the coroner. He plays Dr. Mazursky.
Yeah.
Or Mikursky? Mukherjee.
Mukherjee.
It's a J. What I like about this thing here is that he mentions at one point, within the marks on the neck, they are not dissimilar to a dog bite.
Right.
And everybody goes bananas.
Yeah,
they go, what, a dog bite? What, are the dogs attacking people? What, are you out of your mind? And he goes, well, there's another interesting aspect to this bite, and that is saliva. And they go bananas again, and Claude Akins goes, saliva? What do you mean saliva? And Mazursky says, human saliva. The thing is, this is where it starts to really kind of percolate. And you go, human saliva? Because we've not seen any fangs to necks yet at this point in time.
And it's the first time all these officials are together. It almost is like a Jaws situation where they're all worried that the tourist dollars are going to get affected. So they're trying to keep the wraps on this story.
And D.A. Thomas Paine tries to squash him back down and says, this guy's just your typical maniac in essence.
Right.
He's high on pot or the hard stuff, which
or the hard stuff.
Yeah. High on pot. How many pot smokers do you see ripping out throats? I know a variety of pot smokers. I've never seen anybody rip out a throat before.
They all fall asleep or eat cookies, as far as I know.
Give me the Cheetos.
Now, maybe if it was meth.
That's a different story. So we now have a fourth victim.
Apparently, there was a witness to the murder, and we cut to inside the casino. We see this drawing on the newspaper. It's a suspect drawing. And
police drawing,
and this hand picks up
this big hulking guy from the back. We see him, and he grabs the newspaper. He looks at it. We don't see him looking at it. We just know he looks at it, and he folds the paper, almost like he's going to make it go away. So we gather that this is the murderer. And what's really interesting is as he's walking down, the camera's behind him. He's big hulking guy,
never go in front of him.
Never get in front of him.
I don't think he's hulking. He's kind of thin and. It's like actually.
He's a big guy. I don't think he's that skinny.
Go ahead, Hulk.
Hulk smash. Hulk crush. All right, we'll strike the hulking. All right, already? He's a big, tall guy. Okay, is that good enough? Big, tall guy, 6 foot something. And he's walking, and the camera's from behind him, and as he walks down through the casino, we see people looking at him and reacting to him. The director really knew what he was doing because you don't need to see this guy's face to get an idea what this guy's face is like.
And you're wondering what the hell he looks like.
And it reminded me of that scene in Jaws when the kids are in the water with the cardboard fin.
Yeah.
And they scare the shit out of everybody and people start running. That's exactly the creepy kind of feeling you're getting with these people seeing this hulking figure walking by.
There's a funny story John Moxley tells when they're shooting that scene.
Okay.
Dan Curtis had the actor who plays the vampire, Barry Atwater. In makeup, he goes, let's have him walk through the casino. And they have him walk through the casino. No one noticed him at all.
Really?
No one picked up on it.
Well, they're in Las Vegas. What do you expect?
Well, John Moxley's line is he seemed to fit right in with the casino crowd. No one looked up.
Yeah.
So you know they're extras in the movie.
A real nighthawk, a real lounge lizard.
Yeah. So next we're in the casino, the Sahara Casino parking lot, and we see this woman walking through.
Yeah, and all I can say is, why do you have to walk through the alleyway?
It's
Don't you know what you're doing?
So this woman walking to her car, and we see this figure from behind, but he's in his car, in shadow. And we cut to his face in the car, but everything is dark, except for his eyes. There's like a slash of light across his eyes.
I got to say. So I'm watching this as a little kid, and I don't even know why I would sit up for the whole thing and watch it. I probably just should have gone to bed, but no. You don't want to miss anything. You're a little kid.
What do you mean? You had to stay up for the innocents.
You have to put toothpicks in your eyes to stay awake, but you don't want to miss out. And I watched this whole thing, but as I'm rewatching this again now, I see that face.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, man, that face was in my mind for the rest of the night. I was getting no sleep at all.
The weird thing is you just see these red bloodshot eyes.
They're
tasty
terrifying.
White skin.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's walking, she walks down, and you think, oh my God, this girl has to be out of her mind walking down this alley. So he gets out of the car, we see him from behind.
Well, it's a parking lot. She's going to a car.
Still, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd take some big bruiser or something with me.
Yeah.
So she's walking, you go, she's got to be out of her mind. She's crazy.
He's approaching her. He's now on his feet, and he's cornering her.
Right.
And she's standing at the car, and I'm going, why don't you jump in?
Just run.
Why doesn't she jump in?
Yeah. But she has a little something up her sleeve. It's called a Doberman pincer.
Oh, my God.
And it comes out, and it's growling at him, and all of a sudden it jumps up, and we see him grab it by the throat, and we hear, and nothing.
Nothing.
We hear a crunch and nothing. And chills go up my spine because I thought, oh, my God. She's frozen with fear. You know, the thing is, it's the weirdest thing about the brain. You would think the brain, where's all this fight and flight stuff? You think that the brain would just go, okay, run as fast as you can. But she stands there frozen. And that's what happens to your brain sometimes.
Yeah.
You get so overloaded, you stop. And then we fade out. We don't see this woman attacked.
No. Right. That's the last thing you see.
So the next scene after we fade out is back to the newsroom. And I love this scene because between Vincenzo and Kolchak, there's always going to be some great sparring. It's like watching Ali and Frazier or something. It's the thriller in the newsroom. So you got Vincenzo. He's sick and tired of being squeezed from all sides, from the politicians, from the owner of the paper, and from Kolchak. And he's just had enough of it. And Kolchak finally says to him, "This nut thinks he's a vampire. He's killed 4, maybe 5 women. He has drained every drop of blood from every one of them. Now that is news, Vincenzo. News. And this is a newspaper. We're supposed to print news, not suppress it." Vincenzo is not impressed, and he's not pleased.
What's funny about the movie, it's actually, there's 2 scenes in the movie that keep reoccurring.
Yeah.
The DA's office in the courthouse and the newspaper office. And why? Because it's low budget. They got to keep using the same sets, but they work it in so well.
John, they shot this thing for $450,000, and they did it, guess what? 12 days.
12
now think
days,
about that.
yeah.
They shut it in 12 days.
Well, that's how you do it, right? It's like but it's great. You don't notice because the sets are part of the story so much.
Economical.
But those two sets keep coming back. I'm like, we're back in the DA's office again? What's his name? Kolchak is looking for the car.
And he has a little inn, which he has a tendency to drop in every once in a while to the switchboard operator at the county courthouse.
Right.
And he bribes her with a Whitman sampler.
Now, sampler.
I know there's a bunch of flowers on it, but
it's a Whitman
we
sampler.
know it's a Whitman sampler.
Yeah. It's a big one.
But I love how Kolchak, in greasing her palm, not only with the Whitman sampler, he goes, "So, you magnificent morsel." So she's
Smooth
the one.
Talker.
She's the one who gives him the tip about the car and where he got it from. So Kolchak makes his way over there. But before he gets there, Sheriff Butcher is interviewing Fred Hurley, the guy who owns the used car lot.
Right.
And you see the frustration on Sheriff Butcher's face. He doesn't even turn around. He just hears a car come screeching up and this dust comes kicking up. And he knows right away it's Kolchak, and he pounds his fist on the hood of the car. And I don't know if you noticed or not, but Hurley, the owner of the used car lot, he puts his hand on the spot he just pounded on, tries to rub away any fingerprints.
What are you doing to my merchandise? What's funny about Hurley is he's this cowboy. He's got the whole cowboy act.
Played by Stanley Adams.
But he's got a Brooklyn accent.
That's a good point. Well, people move from all over the world.
But it's perfect. That's Las Vegas for you.
You guys want some cars over here, but he's great. He's terrific.
Like this electric cowboy outfit.
And he did a lot of stuff, too. He did a ton of television, but one part he played was the worst episode ever in the history of television, certainly on Lost in Space. It was called The Vegetable Rebellion, and Stanley Adams played a human carrot.
Poor guy. So next scene is back at the girlfriend's house. Somehow Kolchak seems to be shacking up with this girl. He's always in her apartment.
Well, I tell you right now, if I was Kolchak, I'd be shacking up with the girl too.
Have we even been in Kolchak's apartment? I don't know if I've seen it.
No, we have not seen
at this chick's house all the time. Well, she's cleaning, she's cooking.
She's ironing his shirt.
He's got the life. And she has been reading up on vampires.
Right. And she wants him to take it seriously. So Kolchak starts to read the book, and we hear this in Darren McGavin's voice. Since the beginning of man's existence, there have been creatures of the night, crazed monsters that track the bloody footprints through the pages of fact and fiction. Of them all, the vampire seems to have accumulated the largest body of documentation. By night, the vampire virtually is indestructible. While lying dormant during the day, he can be destroyed by hammering a wooden stake through his heart. And we see this look in Kolchak's eyes. He looks up right at the audience, and you hear this piece of music, and you go, wait a second. It finally has clicked in his head. This is reality. And it's so cool, once again, Matheson has taken us all the way down this garden path and said, okay, I told you so. And it's beautiful. We have another tip. We see our murderer in the hospital, and he's going toward the blood bank.
He's in the little room where the refrigerators are.
And he's going through these bottles.
Yeah.
And once again, like you said before, this is reality now. This really all comes together.
It's kind of queasy. You're looking at this
queasy,
blood and this
queasy's a good word for it. I was going to say creepy, but queasy's
glass bottles, like.
And it's blood.
Yeah.
So he's going through it like basically he's buying lunch. He's at the frozen food counter or something, or the juice aisle. A woman sees the door open to the blood bank, which obviously is not supposed to be. She's a nurse, and she comes in, and she sees him, and she just starts screaming. She runs out, and these guys come flying out of nowhere, these orderlies, and he throws them around like they're rag dolls.
Well, it's the first time we see him, actually, because he turns around.
Yeah.
And he's this tall, thin character.
He's
got
pissed.
The weirdest
hair.
And
he's pissed.
Right? Weird hair.
Weird hair.
He's really pasty looking. He looks nothing like the actor Barry Atwater.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you've seen a picture of Barry Atwater, he's in a lot of movies.
Yeah, I want to make a point about Barry Atwater. That's a good point, John.
He looks nothing. The makeup is amazing.
I came across a headshot of Barry Atwater.
Yeah.
Handsome guy.
Yeah.
But
you've seen him in a ton of things.
If you put a pipe in his mouth, who does he look like, John?
Hef. He's Hef.
So, folks, if you Google Barry Hadwater, pull up a headshot of his, and picture him with a pipe in his mouth, he looks like Hef. So he was a good-looking man at the time.
Yeah. Right? Well, what's funny about the scene also is the nurse screams, and out of nowhere, this hulking, big, blonde male nurse's aide?
Yes.
Is that what you would call him?
Yeah.
Comes down the corridor.
Yeah.
And jumps.
I get orderly. I always say orderly.
Orderly. Yeah. Okay, perfect.
Not Jerry Lewis, but...
Orderly comes, and he punches the guy twice.
Right.
He's a big, muscular guy.
Nothing.
Nothing. No effect. He just looks at him, and he's kind of growling, right? He's got this low...
He's pissed at him.
But that's all he does. He doesn't really say anything. He just kind of...
And that's the interesting thing about Barry Atwater in this movie. Through the entire movie, not a line of dialogue, not a single word.
Not one line of dialogue. So he just tosses this orderly out the door, basically, into the hall.
And another guy comes.
Another guy.
On him in 2 seconds. He just tosses him. Boom.
Yeah.
And another one. Boom. And then finally, I think he's just pretty much had enough of this.
I kept thinking, where the hell are all these orderlies coming from? Is this like a gay porn movie? Like, it's all these big, strong orderlies. Like, I've never been in a hospital with all these orderlies.
And they're very well groomed, by the way.
They are.
In a very 70s
but why
long
are orderlies
haircut.
always muscular in movies? It's so funny.
I don't know.
My experience is all little creepy, thin guys.
Jerry Lewis.
The
disorderly orderly.
These are orderlies.
Right, exactly. But unfortunately, no matter how well built they are, they're not really making a dent. And then he gets fed up. Okay, he's had enough of this crap now. So this murderer, vampire we gather, he grabs one of them and throws him out the window. Now, that's a pretty damn spectacular thing to see on television. It was very, very dramatic and very violent. My God.
I remember... You're inside, and he throws him, and you think, oh, he's just going to go through the window. But they cut outside.
And he goes flying out the window.
It's like 3 stories high.
Oh, yeah.
That's a surprise.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're like, holy shit. I thought it was just going to be from inside the studio. You just don't know where he goes.
No. And then I do believe that cut was probably a commercial at that point. Yeah. It was probably a commercial.
Right.
We go outside, and we see this guy who got thrown out the window just lying there on the ground dead. That's it. Yeah. Glass all over the place. And the next thing we know is this vampire guy, and he's got like 3 guys clinging on him.
Coming out the
hanging
door.
All over him. 3
Yeah.
guys at once. And he throws them off him like rag dolls. Kolchak pulls up and starts taking pictures like mad. And it's a great action sequence because there's a cop car.
Cop cars are showing up out of everywhere.
And crashing into another cop car. There's a great thing with a motorcycle that goes...
Well, he starts zigzagging. Yeah. The vampire is zigzagging through the traffic, and
But the motorcycle's trying to avoid him. That's why he fell down. But they're firing at him left and right, point blank.
He just keeps going.
Not a dent. Nothing. He just keeps going.
Yeah, it's a great action. I mean, there's a lot going on in that scene. You look at it for a TV movie, I'm like, this is their budget right here, because there's like at least 5 cars. I'm serious. There was a lot of stuff happening. It was orchestrate that whole thing.
Great.
And then next day, where are we again? DA's office. Hey, let's use this set again. We got to get all these scenes out of here. Bernie is going on and on about this Interpol report.
He finally lays it out who this guy is. Janos Skorzeny.
And one of the things he mentions is the guy was born in
1899.
1899.
And Sheriff Butcher says, you got to be kidding me. This guy's over 70 years old. There's no way you got this right. And Bernie doesn't want to hear it. He's been up all night.
Yeah.
He inherited $75 to $100 million from his father, and he became a big lover of nightlife, which I love. That's very good. And then he surfaced later on.
If I inherited that much money, I would be a big lover of nightlife. I wouldn't work a day of the week, and I would become a vampire.
You got all the money to do whatever you want.
Exactly.
Why the hell not? Then he surfaced later, because they kind of lost track of him. Then he surfaced later in England just in time for the Blitz.
Right.
And his name at this point was Paul Belasco. He was a specialist in hematology research, and his work involved freshly killed air raid victims from various London emergency rooms. In his residence, he installed several sumps, tubs, and a commercial meat freezer.
Well, it's unusual, I think, at the time to hear the history of a vampire. He kind of beat, what's her name? Anne Rice. You know what I mean? Because you never think about vampires, how they live throughout their whole life.
Right, but once again, this is Richard Matheson. I'm sorry to be beating this drum, but as this whole thing unfolds, this 75-minute little gem, it's amazing where he would come up with this idea of coming into England just in time for the Blitz, because you got all these dead bodies.
You got all these bodies.
And he's doing, hematology experiments, and he's got all these bodies in his meat freezer, and he's got suction devices and tubs and all this stuff. Yeah. It's really creepy.
I always thought if you were going to be a vampire in World War II, you'd be like a Nazi, an SS guy, right? Jeez.
Bring all those over to my freezer now! Raus!
So he's driving, he's got this police scanner, and he hears they're chasing this suspect.
And he throws a U-turn in the middle of the main drag.
We cut to the suburban street. Right. We see Janos's car, which is this big station wagon I've talked about. The police cars...
It's almost like a hearse. I mean, the way it's shaped and
right.
stuff. Yeah.
And they've boxed him in on this street. Yeah. He gets out. He runs for it.
Right.
And he ends up in this backyard pool.
Right.
And there's this wrestling match by the pool.
Yeah.
And two of the guys and this Janos go into the pool. Right. They're struggling underwater. I didn't know vampires can swim. They come out of the pool, and he throws them around. And this was a scene, again, I remember from childhood. He makes a run for it.
And he is shot point blank several times.
Pistols, shotguns. At one point, he falls down.
Oh, the falling down scene, forget it.
Is great.
When he turns around and he's got that gash in his head, it's not really dripping blood, and he looks at them, once again, John, no way I'm getting to sleep tonight.
Well, the thing is, he falls over this furniture, and they're like, oh, we got him. And they start walking forward, and he suddenly gets up and turns around.
Like a rabid dog.
And they all stop like, what the hell? We just shot him 20 times.
He gets up and just jumps over the fence, and they keep shooting.
They keep shooting. And you see these bullets piercing his, you see the dust falling on, whatever, the water coming off of him. It's a great scene.
Are you believing he's a vampire now, John, at this point?
At that point, that's the point when I thought, okay, this guy's a vampire.
Ruby Roo!
Or maybe he's just like hopped up on that marijuana.
Or the hard stuff.
Whatever that is. The hard stuff.
John, it's the hard stuff. That's all you need to know. So we find out through this tip he gets from this guy he knows through the real estate agencies. And actually the guy he knows is played by
Elijah Cook
Jr. Everybody and their brothers in this movie. So he finds the location of the house, and he comes up to it out of his car. Now, I have to say, the outdoor footage is really some of the best day for night footage I've seen. Yeah. Really, really good.
And funny enough, it's a creepy Victorian house.
John, doesn't it look kind of like the Psycho house up on the hill? I mean, it's not, but it looks like it.
But I thought, like, what's that doing in Vegas? This vampire found the one Victorian house.
Well, if he's going to live, he's going to live in some little flat ranch somewhere, right?
Right.
He's got to live in some sort of gothic kind of place. But I got to tell you, when Kolchak goes inside, I'm going to say this about Janos Skorzny. What a slob. He's got newspapers and garbage and bottles all over the place.
Yeah, so hasn't cleaned at all.
So when Kolchak goes in, he finds a refrigerator with the blood in it. And like a weird scene. Like his grimace of like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Is really creepy to watch. He takes photographs of it because you got to get the photographs, get documentation. And then he finds some disguises. And then he
which is weird.
Yeah.
This big trunk.
Yeah.
There's like suits.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's a drawer of disguises, like mustaches, beards, like
how long has this guy been doing this?
Yeah,
for, right? Moving on to when he gets
But just the idea that there's a guy, a vampire out there, and he changes appearances it's weird. It's like creepy.
He's not changing into like a wolf or a bat.
No.
He is just changing his appearance to make his way through the landscape and not get caught, obviously.
Right.
So as he's walking around, there's no music. It's just the sounds that are in the house. And when he walks around, every little shuffle of his foot, you go, oh boy.
Yeah.
As a creak on the stairs. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
'Cause you're waiting for something to come up. You don't know where this guy is. Is he home? Is he not? We have really no idea.
No.
So he's going up. And I got to say that Darren McGavin does such a beautiful job of really looking like he's terrified about every step and something could be coming around every corner. He steps on a piece of glass. It sounds like a gunshot went off. And you are filled with the same tension for him. It's terrific. So he goes upstairs.
Goes into one room and he sees the coffin.
Inside the coffin, he puts his hand down and picks it up, and it's soil. Yeah. Which is part of the legend of the vampire, that they have to bring from their homeland soil.
Gotcha.
That they can lay in.
So in this weird curtained room, I guess that's to cover the windows. I just thought about that. Yeah.
Well, when we were young, living, say, in the East Village, we'd take blankets and all kinds of stuff because we didn't wake up before 11, 12 o'clock on the weekend. Right. So he goes upstairs, and this is the creepiest part as he's going upstairs, because you're going, oh my God, anything can jump out at any second. And he opens the door and he sees this woman tied to the bed. Yep. And she has an IV bottle of blood going into her arm. Yeah. And we figure it out. Kolchak actually says it. My God. His own private blood bank, because he can't keep just draining blood out of the woman. Right. She's going to die. So he keeps her alive with this blood. So he has.
I thought, come on, Kolchak. The woman's right there in front of you. His own private blood. He says it out loud. He's got no tact, this guy.
It's kind of like an aside in a Shakespearean play. He's letting the audience know what's going on here.
But you're right. It's another great wrinkle in this whole vampire thing. Like, what a great way to do it. Yeah, just like you have to keep replenishing the victim. This guy doesn't think he's
a vampire. He is a vampire.
But you have to replenish the victim. Yeah. You're exactly right.
So he takes the tape off her mouth, and she can't even speak, obviously, because her throat's all ripped
She's all
up.
Pasty, too, by the way.
Oh, my God.
She's still alive, but she's white. Yeah.
So he's keeping her alive, but barely, but just enough to maintain the blood supply. And, when she runs out, when her body just basically gives up, he'll get somebody else.
I guess.
So he takes the tape off, and he's trying to talk to her. And then he hears something downstairs. The door slams.
He also, he does untie her feet.
Right.
And we hear the car pull up.
The car pull up, and the door slam. And your heart stops right then and there. So Kolchak goes into a closet.
But before he does,
he tries to put the piece of tape back on her face. He tries
to put them in, the glue's gone.
Right, because that much sweat after you put it on, it ain't gonna stick. He says, hold still. Yeah. So he goes in the closet to hide. This is the sad thing. He has to tie her back to the bed.
Yeah, exactly. I feel bad for this woman.
So he goes inside the closet to wait. And Skorzeny comes in, and he sees the bottle of blood that's in her arm is low. Yeah. So he has a new bottle of blood. He puts it back on.
He's replenishing.
Which is really creepy once again. And what's interesting is the way the shadows in this room and the way this bed is up against the wall in the corner there. Yeah. If this guy wasn't a vampire, this would be like Ed Gein. Yeah. It would be like a serial killer or something.
It is exactly like a serial killer. Yeah. With the disguises, right? And the other thing is, I kept thinking, so he's got all this blood he's stolen. I always thought, he's just drinking the blood. Right. But maybe it tastes better, I guess, if it comes through the human, right? It must.
It always tastes better when it comes to the human, John. Come on.
So Shelley, that's her name, Shelley Forbes, the victim. Right. I feel so bad for this woman.
Oh, my God.
Like, she's just about to get released, and the guy comes back.
He's got to tie her back up. So Skorzeny puts the blood and gets her set up, and he walks out. And when he walks out, he stops at the top of the stairs. And he looks like he's looking out of his peripheral vision back at the room, and you're going, oh, no. No. No, please. No. No, please don't. Don't. And Kolchak is waiting and waiting.
We're in the closet with him.
He's in the closet.
No jokes with that. It's too obvious.
Well, we've already seen Gail. Certainly Kolchak's not really in the closet if you want to get that far. So he's waiting for this guy just to walk away. And we're waiting. And your heart's pounding. And your heart's pounding. All of a sudden, boom. The door flies open, and there's this hissing, growling, grimace face of the vampire.
And your first thought is, what are you going to do? You're stuck in. He's got nowhere to go.
Right.
I'm like, oh.
So luckily, he has the crucifix.
Not luckily. He's a smart guy, that Kolchak.
That's true.
He brought the kit with him. He's got the little duffel bag.
Got the vampire kit. He stopped at Woolworths and got the vampire kit. So he's got this great, really reflective silver
like
cross.
chrome and mirrored and
Terrific.
whatever.
I mean, good idea because it really pops.
Silver. I said chrome.
It really pops when you see it, when the light hits it. And he pulls it up, and you see the vampire just hiss and growl at him, and it's framed so well because here's the cross, and in the lower hand corner you can see his face, so he's really framed by the cross. So Kolchak starts to back him out. Yeah. So Kolchak makes his way out, gets the hell out of there, holds him back, and then he steps on one of the stairs.
He's going down the stairs. Well, he's going down the stairs backwards because this guy's just staring him down the whole way, waiting for the slightest mistake. Yeah.
This really feels so Hammer-like at this point in time. Yeah. And I don't mean MC
And
Hammer.
it's a great set. It is a set, but it's so well done.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a chintzy set.
No way.
They really did a lot of good work.
This feels like Hammer.
Yeah. And as you said, he slips, of course.
Falls down the stairs. Scores and he's gone. And we're like, where the hell is he? Where the hell is he? And then suddenly, boom, he's on him. And he picks Kolchak up and he throws him around back and forth. He beats the living shit out of him across the room. Finally, he's on him.
He's turning his head.
Yeah.
He's got him pinned.
At this moment, he's just about to have his neck, and Bernie comes in.
Yep. The vampire turns around and just throws Bernie across
Holy
the
cow.
room.
I mean, bounces him off the wall.
Yeah. I mean, super strength.
Yeah.
And then Kolchak sees the gun on the floor, and he picks it up.
And he starts firing at him. Bang, bang, bang.
6 shots. It's a revolver.
Exactly. Nothing. He keeps coming at him.
Yeah.
And he's just about to have it all over with. And he looks out of the peripheral vision of his eye, and he sees a little light coming through, the sunlight coming through, and he pulls down the curtain. Yeah. And you see him, the vampire, recoil, and he's growling. And
I did not see that coming. For all the things you think about in these movies, I did not see that coming.
It's great.
Yeah.
And you can see that it's, we use the expression now when we're talking about people who look like vampires. It burns, but it really is burning. You see it, you feel it.
So he's backing up, and Bernie's on the other side of the room. He grabs and pulls the curtain open. So they got him kind of cornered.
And there is nowhere for him to go at this point. The light is coming in not only from the curtain areas, but there's a stained glass window above.
He looks up, right? Janos looks up to go to landing.
He's got
in that
nowhere
stained
to go.
glass window.
Nowhere to go.
What a great shot, right?
Yeah.
The stained glass window.
It's beautiful. So Bernie Jenks picks up the crucifix and holds him down. And you see him, he's weakening. And then Kolchak takes out the stake and he takes out the hammer. And I have to say,
it's a freaking wood mallet.
Yeah,
it's big.
It's huge. It's huge. It's almost like a short-handled version of the ones you see at the carnival.
Yeah, it's like a wooden mallet.
You hit the thing and it hits the bell, and he's got it in his hand, and he puts it to his chest, and you see the vampire basically trying for all he can to try and keep it away from him, but he can't. And Kolchak comes down with the mallet on it, and the reaction of the vampire is so extreme. It just gives you the chills and knocks you out. You go, my God, he's actually killing a real vampire. What's chilling about it is this is on television.
Yeah.
And it is so Hammer graphic. Yeah. Now, you're not seeing blood. No. But
you see his reaction.
The pounding of this thing coming down at him and his reaction to it. Boom, boom. Yeah. You go, oh my God, this is terrifying. This is chilling. And it was on television. So I was surprised to see how graphic
the thing was. And at that moment,
of
course, Sheriff Butcher bursts through the door.
And Kolchak has the hammer up in the air, and he looks back behind him. It's like he's Von Helsing at this point. Yeah. Even though Kolchak kills the vampire, all good things must come to an end. And there's not going to be any Pulitzer, no New York City, and no Gail for old Carl.
Yeah. It's sad because he's planning on this taking him back to the big time.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to take this byline and run with it back to New York City.
Right.
They run him out of town on a rail. They say they're going to basically indict him for murder and charge him and try him for murder unless he gets out of town right now because they don't want to know they don't want to know anything about it.
Which is another great thing. It's just this whole, again, we talked about it, the tension between reality and this real vampire. Like, he basically murdered a guy in front of the sheriff.
Right. We know that they know that they can't let this story out.
Oh, of course
Vincenzo
not at
cannot
all.
print this story. It's just too fantastic, and there's no way anybody's going to believe it. So let's just let it die and let him be the scapegoat. But
they're all looking for an opportunity to get rid of him.
Absolutely.
They want to get rid of Kolchak.
I feel terrible for Kolchak, but I feel really bad for Gail because Gail gets run out of town too as an undesirable.
Yeah.
And he is not.
That's pretty harsh.
He's never to find Gail again.
You think about it. Back in the 70s, no cell phones, no.
He plays
you had
his
yellow pages.
He plays
his
ads.
Books.
He plays his ads in the personals.
There's no way you
can
find people.
You can't find a person like that. And I'll tell you right now, Carl Kolchak ain't never going to get a babe like Carol Lynley again. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make one point. They also put at the end of the movie, they do these end cap Quinn Martin production credits, where they show clips from the movie and they put the name of the credits. It's very Quinn Martin, but I love it.
Sure. You cut to Darren McGavin walking through the newsroom.
And Barry Atwater as Janos Scorsese. And it's so great because they show that shot of him that we were talking about where he's sitting in the car with just that light hitting just his eyes. Right. And it's chilling. I mean, gee, you didn't get enough scary stuff in here as a little kid.
Oh, they're gonna milk that.
You're gonna get hit with that last image before you go to bed and brush your teeth. You know, it's classic Darren McGavin. Just beautiful, beautiful stuff.
And again, we talked about this 74 minutes, 75 minutes.
75 minutes, yes.
And it's all about the writing, right? Because you have to have this super tight script, and the acting has to hold it up in the direction.
And it's beautiful across the board. The music, the direction, the acting, the way it's shot.
I mean, it does remind me of, we mentioned this earlier, it reminds me of Psycho in a way because Hitchcock shot Psycho with a television crew.
That's right.
You know, small budget.
Right.
And it's the same feel to it.
Right. I totally agree with you.
It's just like boom, boom, boom. It just moves.
But that's what's so beautiful about it is there's no fat.
Yeah.
It just moves straight forward, and every single minute it builds and builds and builds till you go, he is a freaking vampire.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, that's all the time we have this week.
We'd like to thank our friend Glenn Arnowitz for his music.
And of course, our listeners for tuning in.
So join us next week for another episode of
Film Detour.
If you like our show, please recommend us to your friends. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, and leave a review.
Go to our website at filmdetourpodcast.com to leave comments or email us with questions. You can also visit us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.